Do you want to hear more from members and leaders from the Somali community to say, we need to look at ourselves, we need to hold our own neighbors accountable, because look at the damage that this has done to our community. What do you want to hear more from, instead of just saying, don't blame us? Do you want to see more ownership and oversight from within this?
Look, it's not law-abiding citizens. If that were the case, there's a lot of white men should be holding a lot of white men accountable for the crimes that they have committed. I think for the community to maybe educate their population, because I think what you're seeing here is there's secondary victims in this, that there's providers inside the community that are then victimizing the community themselves by signing them up, because when we're going to some of these people, they're like, I had no idea I was in this program. So I think it's asking us then, for every crime, which of course the majority being committed by white men, asking us to do more about that. I think it's crime in general. And I think the biggest thing on this is just making sure that we're educating the population. And again, this is 80 people or so that have been convicted in this, maybe some more in that.
Behold tampon Tim Walz, Minnesota's bumbling king of catastrophic incompetence, unleashing his latest bumbling routine in blame dodging and reality twisting deflection. When grilled on the billion-dollar feeding our future heist, pulled off almost exclusively by his cherished Somali fraud ring, Walz pirouettes like a drunk ballerina on black ice, desperately flinging the spotlight onto the only boogeyman Democrats ever summon: evil white men. Minnesota moron Tim Walz drooled out another incoherent rant that white men must be held accountable for the crimes they've committed, as if the billion-dollar Somali fraud bonanza sprouting in his own backyard was masterminded by a secret cabal of pale-skinned accountants from Edina. This has exactly zero to do with white men, you stumbling communist trash puppet. Blame Whitey is literally the only page left in the Democrat playbook. Or did the rest of the Marxist manifesto get eaten by the same diversity hires who torched Minnesota's child nutrition funds? Walz's clown car of an administration deliberately blindfolded itself to the blazing red flags of rampant crime and billion-dollar fraud exploding from Somalian immigrant enclaves, because Democrats are too busy shoving their heads too far up the backside of any evil white man they can find. With Tampon Tim so far inside the cavernous black cave of the evil white trash, his eyes glued shut by the stinking feces of his own ignorance, he never confronted the actual predators looting the state blind. Auditors and whistleblowers are setting off the alarm about the glaring red flags ignored by the likes of Tim Walz and Ilhan Omar. Blatant criminal rackets and industrial-scale money laundering exploding out of Somali and immigrant networks, while Tim Walz and Ilhan Omar buried their heads in the sand, or more likely lined their pockets while the looting raged. No refugee-turned-congresswoman racks up a household fortune ballooning to $30 million in a handful of years, on a modest salary alone, without some seriously suspicious windfalls. This isn't Tampon Tim's first rodeo in blame dodging. He was in charge of bringing order to the George Floyd riots. Instead, he allowed Minneapolis to turn into a modern war zone. Police precincts were firebombed, billions torched, and entire neighborhoods reduced to smoldering rubble. Critics across the spectrum roasted Walz for literally doing nothing to stop the mayhem. He dragged his feet on deploying the National Guard, while thugs looted and burned the city to the ground for days. Only after the ashes settled did this spineless clown whimper about his abject failure. It would be like if Biden oversaw a cataclysmic withdrawal from Afghanistan while American soldiers are killed and U.S. equipment is left to terrorist organizations, and Biden then issues an oops, my bad statement. Oh wait, that did happen, but Sleepy Joe couldn't even bother to mutter an incoherent apology. Remember when Tampon Tim stole valor from U.S. servicemen and women? He retired as a master sergeant, but paraded around as a command sergeant major, a rank he did not retire with. And he bragged about the weapons he carried in war. Turns out tiny brain Tim had zero combat deployment. He just so happened to retire before his unit was shipped to Iraq. That's like Bill Clinton swearing that he was just hunkered over Oval Office paperwork late with a dedicated intern. This endless deflection parade isn't leadership. It's a grotesque clown car pileup of cowardice, and the joke's on every Minnesotan bleeding cash for your catastrophic failures. Walz, quit flinging your steaming piles of incompetence at white men like a desperate toddler smearing crap on the wall. Own your messes for once. Accountability isn't racism. It's the bare minimum price of admission for anyone pretending to lead, instead of just groveling for votes.